Hi guys, I wanted to use today's video to show how little you need to invest to get started at raiding in Earth2. I think a lot of new users are put off when they see many user accounts with thousands of dollars invested in and assume that they just can't afford to get involved. I want to show how just $1 is enough to start raiding and demonstrate how I would do this on Earth2. So, in order to start raiding, you'll need a few things. You'll need a property with a minimum of 4 tiles. You'll need a pydroid capable of raiding your targets. And lastly, you'll need 1 or more targets that are in range of that pydroid. So, before finding your tiles, the first thing you have to decide is which country you're going to buy them in. So, I recommend using this table, which is found off of the front page of Earth2.io. It tells you the tile prices for Tier 2 and for Tier 3. We're going to look at Tier 3, which are the cheaper tiles. The main difference between Tier 3 and Tier 2 is Tier 2 you can have civilians hosted on them, which can automate all your raiding activities. But if you've only got a very small portfolio and you're happy to do it manually, then Tier 3 is absolutely fine. It won't affect the results of your raids. So you'll get the same ether collected by your raiding pydroid. So if we look at the ones that are Tier 3, you can see the top ones here are sort of 13, 14 cents. I think this one's an error. I don't think this works properly, the top one here. But I don't think you can purchase Tier 3. But 13, 14 cents seems to be the norm. So if we just pick one of these and go in. So as we can see here, there's a lot of properties purchased in this area. And where there's lots of properties, you tend to find there's a lot of competition for raiding activities. So what I like to do is I like to try and zoom out a little bit, staying within the region that we've selected, and I switch over to the heat map. Now the heat map shows us where properties have been purchased. So all these yellow dots, they're all individual properties that have been bought by other users. So if we avoid this area where we probably would not have good results, and try and focus on some of these properties that are further out and more isolated. So there's one right here. Let's zoom in on this. Now, the first thing to check when looking to see if it's suitable is, does it have a mentor? So this little icon shows us that this does not have a mentor. If there's no mentor, then you cannot raid that property. So this would not be a good choice. So if we zoom out again and try a different property. Let's try this one here. So if we look at this property does have a mentor, so this we could raid. So it could be a possible choice. The next thing to look at is whether it's Tier 1 or Tier 2 or Tier 3. If it's Tier 3 or Tier 2, I would suggest that it probably does not produce much ether, so it wouldn't be a particularly good raiding target. I try to aim for Tier 1 properties whenever possible. So the next thing is to look at the actual user themselves. So if I open this user's information, and we go and have a look. Now you can see that this user has 2013 properties, so it's quite possible that they log in every day, collect their ether, and that any ether that's spawned on that property would be taken by this person. So it's probably not a good choice to go for that one. So if we carry on our search, this property is too small, so I would not bother with this one. Let's try that one. Right, so this one's a little bit bigger. It does have a mentor, and it is Tier 1. So let's have a look at the user's information. So looking at this, we can see that they've only got 13 properties. So it's quite likely that they don't log in very regularly, and that their ether quite possibly is left and is raidable on those tiles. So the next thing to look at is if you sort their portfolio by purchase date and then open their latest purchase, you can see the date of that purchase. So we can see that they haven't purchased anything since January in 2021. So this adds to our case. So if those 13 properties that we just saw had all been purchased within the last few days, then it's quite possible that they are a very active player and they've only just got started on Earth2. But the fact that this person hasn't purchased anything for years and their property is literally just sitting there says to me that this is a very good raiding property. So if we go back to the property and select 4 tiles, we then have the option to buy tier 2 or tier 3. So the tier 3 price, as we saw before, is only 14 cents per tile. So if we purchase those 4 tiles and take the money from my balance, so there you go, it's going to take only 56 cents from my account. So if we take that, now that property has been transferred over to me. So if I now view the property, there it is. So if I select the property here and then we copy the name here and then go to the marketplace. So now that we're in the marketplace, we now need to go into the bazaar and then click on pydroids. So this is where we purchase the pydroid to go onto our property. So there are varying different types of pydroids and each has different purposes, but for raiding you can use any pydroid you want. The only thing to note is that on a tier 3 property the rarity of the pydroid does make a difference. So if we just switch to this table I've got here, so if you have a common pydroid, it can only raid properties of size 1 tile to 25 tiles. An uncommon pydroid 1 to 50, a rare pydroid 1 to 100, epic 1 to 250, and then if a legendary pydroid can raid any property around it. So our property that we were looking at just a minute ago, I think was about 40 tiles. So we would need at least an uncommon pydroid to be able to raid it. So if we go back to our marketplace, so we need to have a look for, so green indicates an uncommon pydroid. So if we go for this one here, and then you put the name of your property by pasting it in, and it should pop up in the box below. So there it is. So I'll click on that and click buy pydroid. So that's cost me 34 cents. So buy. So that should now be transferred to me. There we are. So now if we go back to the main map, click on raid and then search for our property. We should see here that there is now a pydroid on the property that we have just purchased. Now if we scroll down, we can see that there is one property that is in range that we can raid. So we'll select that and we can hit raid. So that has now sent the pydroid out to go and raid that property. And if we wait, you can see an updated status of what is happening. It's going to take 7 seconds to get there, as it's very close. 3, 2, 1. And once it gets there, it will then start raiding. And if the owner of that property has not been collecting their ether, it will then collect it and start returning, which it's returning now. So if you click on raid, you can actually have a look. If you look, the storage bay is completely full of ether. So that is a 100% successful raid. And it also indicates that there is probably more ether on that property still to collect. So I might actually get a second raid in later on. So if I go back to here, you can see that it's now returned. I can now dispense that ether, and over the next few hours it will put that into my inventory up here. And that's it. So I've now got my first raiding property in Earth2, and I'm successfully collecting ether on a regular basis. It's that simple. So if you get yours for just $1, well, in fact it was less than that, I think it was probably about 90 cents that we spent there, you can set yourself up a raiding property and get started. So it really does not have to cost a lot to get involved.